It's now time for On the Line with Cheryl Wilkerson. The conversation will range from local dialogue to international. This show is meant to enlighten, inform, and to inspire. On the Line with Cheryl Wilkerson begins now.
Hello and welcome to On the Line. I'm your host, Cheryl Wilkerson. Happy to be with you on a Sunday morning. Where else would I rather be? I have an exciting show planned for you today. Mr. Gil Bland, he rejoins us today. You know, he's a friend of the show, friend of the university. Gil Bland, the president and chairman of the Urban League of Hampton Roads. Welcome to On the Line.
Well, thank you. It is a privilege to join with you and your listeners and the great family of Norfolk State University, who I hold in the highest regard.
That is nice to hear. Now, from what I understand, the Urban League of Hampton Roads has some very exciting news, and it's all about a partnership, correct?
That is correct. Here to share that the Urban League of Hampton Roads and the Riverside Health System will be announcing a significant partnership between our two organizations. The goal will be to partner and address racial health disparities and the social determinants of health for the Hampton Roads community.
Well, how did the partnership come about? Take us back.
Well, the pillars of the Urban League are education, housing, workforce, and health. Those are the national pillars as well as what we've adopted here in our region of Hampton Roads. And as you probably know, Hampton Roads is a very large Black population, 14th largest in the nation, well over 550,000 Black residents. And, you know, along with that great number of Black residents who, you know, been here for 400 plus years, starting in the country, comes a lot of challenges, and a lot of our residents and our neighbors have challenges, and Urban League focuses on those. In particular, when I reference the social determinants of health, those are the factors like transportation, housing, education, that impact 80% of the quality of your life, and 80% of the length of your life.
You said 80%?
80%. Going to a doctor, clinical intervention only accounts for 10 to 20% of the quality and the length of your life. So unless we address those factors, and there are many in our community, you know, our neighbors and friends and brothers and sisters don't enjoy the quality of life that we are all entitled to.
That is astounding to me. I have never heard that before, Gil. I have never heard. Do you think if people heard that on the regular, like they hear a forecast on the regular, do you think that would make a big difference in people's minds and attitudes?
Well, I think you're absolutely correct. And, you know, one of the big challenges in our community is literacy in all factors, but in particular, healthcare. Dieting, all those factors that I just talked about really comprise our health literacy levels. And we aim to address that in our partnership with Riverside to address the issues of health literacy as it relates to those social determinants of health.
That is that's got my mouth wide open.
Screening on the front end, prevents problems on the back end.
Well, I love learning things, and I have learned so much, and we haven't even been on the phone 5 minutes today. That is, like I said, astounding to me. So Riverside, was it the Urban League that went to Riverside? Did Riverside go to the Urban League? How did this $100,000 commitment come about?
Well, I think, obviously Riverside is a major healthcare organization in our region. And Urban League is, what we would probably consider to be one of the well-known social organizations, social advocacy organizations, particularly working with disadvantaged communities and further, in particular, dealing with Black residents. When you are 1/3 of the population of the region, as Black residents are in Hampton Roads, and our residents have those kinds of challenges, it makes sense to look to work together. So we believe in collaboration, and so does Riverside, because we feel that if we join efforts, 1 + 1 could equal 3. Because we bring strength to the table, and obviously they bring a lot of health and clinical factors to the table, as well as a very strong executive team and talent galore. So through our relationships with the community and building bridges and helping to address the literacy issues, we believe can impact quality of life and length of life. Let me give you an example.
Good.
During the COVID crisis, we found both for testing for COVID initially, and then once the vaccinations began, there was a euphemism or a nice way of saying it, vaccination hesitancy, which frankly meant a lot of folks in our community refused to be vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
In part because of historical and factual social inequities that were administered to Black folks, starting way back with Tuskegee syphilis, experiments over a century ago. So you fast forward to today, and we are all sensitive to those concerns and those fears that the health system might not have their best interests. But it's our belief that the health system does have their best interests, and folks like Riverside are demonstrating that today through the partnership that is being announced. We have to get our fellow citizens, our brothers and sisters and cousins, to say, okay, there is some level of trust. Maybe not with Riverside directly yet, but we have trust with the Urban League. We have trust with the faith-based communities, our clergy and other organizations that can, provide access, because we've had long-standing relationships, and hopefully a trust factor, because when we say we're here to help, we really are. We have no hidden motive. We exist only to help. And that I think makes a partnership good when both parties can bring strength to the table. So Riverside saw the strength that we had in our relationships and our historical outreach and results. Not just outreach, but our historical results and our outreach. And we recognize the resources and the talent and the clinical expertise that Riverside has.
And that, what you said, the way you frame that makes sense to me, but I'm sure there's still some out there that will even give that pushback, Gil. Some will say, well, yes, we trust you, but how do you know, Urban League, how do you know that, you're not being taken along for a ride? And how can you be sure, Urban League, that this is a good partnership for you? In other words, do some people still push back on that?
Of course they do. Unfortunately, and it's really, the only word I can use is unfortunately, many in our communities, particularly in our Black communities, remain unvaccinated.
Yeah, that's
COVID
true.
Line. There are fewer and fewer cases in Virginia for COVID, but there's another strand on the horizon. It's already in Europe and already in the northeast portion of the United States, and could easily come to Virginia. So, this COVID virus is insidious. It attacks your respiratory system, and it's killed over 900,000 Americans. We are a disproportionate percentage of those 900,000 because of a concept known as comorbidities. When you already have other issues,
Yes.
Health factor issues, when your respiratory system is attacked, your ability to ward off or have built-in immunization just doesn't exist. So I think, to your question, how do we know? I think you look at the mortality rate, the number of people who died. But conversely, look at all the folks who, out of a nation of over 300 million people, you're talking 1 million people died. So, there are a lot of folks who survived. And, I would guess we're probably at the 60 to 75% immunization, vaccination rate. So, you have over 200 million people who have decided to be vaccinated and are alive. Further, if you look at not just Riverside, but hospitals across the state of Virginia, it is estimated that anywhere from 90 to 98% of the people who remain in hospitals with COVID are there unvaccinated.
That is astounding.
It's the unvaccinated.
Right.
And COVID is but one example. And, we would like to hope that COVID is behind us. I'm not sure that in the near future. But, there are other issues that impact us. A number of cancer issues, diabetes.
I know diabetes. Recently, there was some legislation for employers and insurance companies to pick up more of the cost of diabetic supplies. And that is big in our community. That's huge.
But consider, again, when I speak to literacy and screenings, if you knew, the appropriate diet, if you have diabetes, that could probably help considerably. If you knew about screenings, so that you learned about these things at an earlier age and not end of life, where sometimes it's often too late to do anything other than to soothe the pain, that would help. So, it's these kinds of partnerships with organizations like Riverside that will allow us to get in and help teach about the opportunities to self-improve, as well as take advantage of some of the systemic stuff that's out here that can help.
I would imagine.
Screening is going to doctors on a more regular basis.
Yes.
There are folks who show up in emergency rooms with stage 4 cancer, never having known they had cancer before. So, it's those kinds of opportunities that can make a difference in our community. But in part, and I don't want to go on and on here, I'd love to hear your questions and comments and observations, but we know with empirical, statistical evidence that the quality and length of your life is often tied to where you were born and where you live, the zip code. So to the degree that, we can address some of those social determinants and zip codes where life is a bit more challenging, then it helps.
Wow. So I would imagine that it may be easier to get your message across, the message that you in Riverside are trying to get out to the community. It might be easier to get that to younger people and perhaps elders. I would think the hardest nut to crack would be those that, are relatively healthy, got their mindset. They're not going to give up the whatever it is they're eating that they love to eat. They're not going to really get outside and walk. But I imagine if you get to a young mind, or perhaps you get to an older mind that has the wisdom and maybe is sick and tired of being sick, I think you might have more success. How does that work? Do you have any data on how that works?
I don't have any data, but intuitively what you said probably makes sense. We get sick of being sick, or, at a young age, you listen more. But, there's a point in your life when everybody thinks they're a Superman or Superwoman and will live forever, and no need to worry about those kinds of things. And then, unfortunately, life happens. And that's where we want to intervene. So when life happens, you're prepared for it. You have the knowledge to do the right things that can make your situation better, or better yet, be preventative, and not having to fall into a pothole simply because it exists. If I know there's a pothole in front of you, I'm going to tell you that, and you can, dance around it, hop over it, whatever, your preference might be. But that's part of what Urban League's goal is, to point out the potholes.
So when people come to you and They're ready for a change. They're ready for something different in their lives. What happens? Do they come to the Urban League? Should they go to the hospital? How should they handle it? Should they call Riverside, and say, "Look, I'm ready to do something different"? How does that work, Gil?
Well, we'll be working out the details, but our interview and conversation today is the start of that.
Okay.
I mean, again, that whole notion of health literacy, just simply knowing that there are folks and there are events and opportunities designed to help is a great start.
Mm-hmm.
And then working with people as, they develop their own personal plans, because it's different for each of us, depending on, where we live, who our parents were, whether, they gave us genetic issues or opportunities that others don't have. It's all individualized. And, I won't get into the clinical side because that's not my area of expertise. But, if it's necessary, that's where Riverside can intervene on the clinical side. But on these social determinants, I mean, all of us as a community and as neighbors and brothers and sisters and family working together to point out that, some behavior may be unnecessary and could be corrected or eliminated. Some knowledge is useful, that if your church or community center or urban league is having blood pressure screenings or prostate cancer screenings, it makes sense, to attend. And that way you have a early warning sign of potential issues. Or hopefully you get a sign that says, you're completely healthy and continue, on the good habits that you already have. But,
Yep.
To be kind of like the weatherman to say, there are storms out here unless you're prepared. It's the bar, to extend that analogy, there was a time when, we didn't have reports of hurricanes, a week or 2 weeks out, and it just hit us unprepared. Well, now, if you know a hurricane's coming, likely the weatherman told you that 2 weeks ago, and you're already prepared for it. And I think that's an appropriate analogy for health issues and those issues where, we have to collaborate with everyone in the community to improve food deserts and improve transportation and education. And, I personally found, at least for myself, that education is a gateway to all types of opportunities. And that's whether it's in classroom, at high school level or community college or trade school level, or, as it relates to health. I personally am a survivor of COVID. And I caught COVID a year ago before the vaccinations were even available and had never been sick before. And, I'm fortunate that I survived that. Health issues are to be taken seriously.
Well said. I am speaking with Gil Bland. He's the president and chairman of the Urban League right here in Hampton Roads, announcing a new partnership between Riverside and the Urban League of Hampton Roads. And,
well, trouble with the chairman of our board. I am president and CEO. There is a board chair, so don't get me in.
No, we don't want to get you in trouble. We do not want to do that. President and CEO. Okay, we've got you. Now,
yes, ma'am.
One of the things that I like to tell people if they are really interested in doing better by their health or whatever, and, sometimes people are embarrassed, or sometimes they go to the doctor and they don't quite understand something, and they might be a little shy about asking, or they might ask and they still don't get it. I don't want people to sleep on pharmacists. Since I was at Norfolk State as a student a long time ago, that's when I learned about the jewel within our community, pharmacists, because these are trained persons and they can help you and they can guide you. And sometimes they can help you if you need something translated or just give you some advice or tell you what to say to go back to that healthcare professional or whatever. So I just want to shout out pharmacists today and tell you to use them because they're knowledgeable. They spent many years in college and they know what they're talking about, pharmacists.
Well, we borrow a often used phrase, it takes a village. And, in that village are pharmacists and doctors and nurses and grandma and granddad, who have a wealth of experience too, as well as the Urban League and NAACP and others who are, their sole existence is to help and to help teach and to help prepare us for the opportunities and challenges of life. So I agree with you. Whether it's a pharmacist or whether it's state, or any other school, the opportunities to improve literacy and all of these wonderful opportunities and frankly challenges or sometimes just disguised opportunities are available if we know they're there. And part of our goal is to shine a light on where one can find resources. I mean, the Urban League is not the end all in terms of resources, but we can help collaborate with others and shine a light on where help can be found.
Correct. Now I'm going to tell you about my pitiful self with getting and staying healthy. So during COVID, I joined this gym because the gym was small and they had boxes blocked off so you couldn't get too close to others and you just stood in the box and did individual exercises or whatever. And so now all that is lifted or whatever, but the gym isn't fancy. It's like old-fashioned exercises, but I feel so much better. I can outplank a whole lot of people. They doubt me, but then we do it and I've got it. Okay. But
good for you. 5 seconds.
The thing about it is, this is what my mind says, because I don't like going to the gym, especially when it's cold. Okay. I'm not one of these people, Gil, that says, oh, I get to go to the gym in an hour. But I found that I tell myself the hour before, I'm like, Cheryl, you're going to the gym because when you are in that car and you are driving home, you feel like dynamite. You are so good. So I that's my reward, because I know when I get in that car, Gil, that I am going to feel good. And, people don't exercise because some people will say, I just don't like it. I've decided, well, it's okay. I wouldn't say I don't like it, but the reward is later on. And that's what helps me get along. And hopefully maybe that'll help somebody else.
So in our community, I don't have to tell you, there are a number of sayings like no pain, no gain, or, for those of us who have religious convictions, no cross, no crown, right? Mm-hmm. It takes some work to achieve your goals.
So we are going to all do better. And there are many ways that we can do better. We've got to just take care of ourselves. We got to take care of our mind, our body, our soul, all of that. It's exciting that the Urban League, has partnered with Riverside Health Systems. That is going to just be a win-win for this entire community of the 757. And I did not know that Virginia has the 8th largest Black population in the nation.
Yeah. The 2020 census, and even then, some of us were undercounted. We are 20% of the state's population, which is over 1.6 million Black folks throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. It's a lot of folks. And, it's probably not to be unexpected given that we're a southern state, or at least have a southern heritage. And in Hampton Roads, as I said, we're the 14th largest Black region in all of the country.
Whoa.
550,000 plus.
Whoa.
And one other statistic, already in the 2020 census, it was shown that residents 18 and under, and that's Black, Latinos, and Asian Americans, are already the majority population in the Commonwealth, 18 and under, when you combine us. So, what heretofore was known as a minority group, it's increasingly becoming the majority group in this country. And that is, a personal challenge that the Urban League wears proudly, and that is preparing that 18 and under group for college readiness, career readiness, and life readiness. We can't have a healthy community, a quality workforce, good neighborhoods if if our young folks are graduating and are not ready for life, career, or college.
Gil, you said a mouthful with that whole minority becoming majority. We could do another whole 5-hour show on that, because I think that is exactly what has gotten some people so very upset. But, we just have a few minutes left in the program today, and I'd like for you to take...
I would simply say, though, with that opportunity becomes responsibility, and responsibility to be ready.
That's correct. That's correct. We have just a few minutes left, so if you don't mind, just talk about the Urban League and some other areas that the listening audience may not know about, but they can benefit from.
Well, thank you. We are very proud. In fact, we're going to be introducing at a Riverside event a young person who was able to qualify and become a homeowner. But one of our housing initiatives, we had a Spark grant that was issued through the Virginia Department of Housing. And as long as someone went through and completed our classes on being ready to buy a home and all the stuff associated with getting your credit and all in place and ready for mortgage, they were able to get a mortgage from the state of Virginia. And we did over $2.5 million of training for homeowners. We are also involved in one of the things that I said I believe is a legacy for us is a national urban league program called Project Ready. And that's where we target young people ages 12 to 19 for those very three factors: life readiness, career readiness, college readiness. And we're in a handful of high schools now, but our goal is to be across the entire Hampton Roads region and give our students the opportunities and exposure to prepare them to take the baton from us older folks. We need them to be ready. As like workforce, we have financial opportunity centers. Mm-hmm. We have one at Glen Rock at the Military Circle area, and then the second one in Newport News at Brooks Crossing, which is a facility in the eastern section of Newport News. So there are a number of programs we work with in health. We also are involved with the city of Norfolk in an HIV program to help those infected with that virus, to live healthier lives and help them through their issues and opportunities. So it's a fairly wide range. And the good news is we're finding more and more partners, and the partners run the gamut from colleges like Norfolk State, health organizations, community organizations, the faith-based community, students, and our neighbors, seemingly ready to embrace collaborative efforts to work together for better and healthier communities. And we're pleased to be a part of that effort, pleased to help in that effort, and when necessary, we're pleased to advocate and help lead those efforts.
Gil Bland, he has joined us today. Man, we are always happy when you join us. Before you go, and we are down to the last minutes of the show, but before you go, please go ahead and tell people how they can donate if they would like to do so, or get in contact with the Urban League.
Well, I'm really proud of our social media, and thank you for that opportunity. Let me say before I share that information, we're grateful anytime Norfolk State's willing to allow us a forum to talk and just have conversation about the opportunities in our community. But you can learn all that you want to learn about the Urban League on our website, ULHR, that's the Urban League of Hampton Roads, but ulhr.org. We have a wonderful website that not only provides a calendar of future events and goes into programs that we develop and are promoting, but it also has some historical stuff that we have done and are proud to share. For example, every January...
I'm going to stop you on that, but give out those tags one more time just because we're running out of time.
ulhr.org.
Thank you so much, Gil Bland, President and CEO of the Urban League of Hampton Roads, has been my guest. I'm Cheryl Wilkerson. We have enjoyed you on this Sunday morning. You all take care. Have a safe week, and we will talk again next week, Lord willing. And as they say, the creek don't rise. This is On the Line.